Hi, I'm Ekedahl, and I am at First Lutheran Church in Janesville. I am both a longtime member and I am currently serving as a ministry associate here.
So how long have you been a lay leader?
Well, Erica, a lot longer than I knew what a lay leader meant. I probably would have started when I was a 7th grader. I was in confirmation and we were supposed to be in worship every Sunday, and I thought it sounded better to teach Sunday school. So I actually started way back in middle school and in high school because I felt drawn to working with the children and the education.
In the 38 years that you've been an adult member of First Lutheran here in Janesville, how have you served as a lay leader for your congregation?
Well, I've done a variety of things. I began early on as a Sunday school teacher. Back then we called it Sunday school, now it's a Journey of Faith program, because I was a beginning teacher and it seemed like a natural fit for me, and I was enjoying that greatly. Over the years I also worked in our church library, also because I became a school librarian, so it seemed also a natural fit there. I morphed somewhere along the line into being a lay reader, so I do read texts, the weekly lessons in front of the church. I also, over time, learned to be a worship assistant on a broader basis. So I lead liturgy and assist in prayers and other tasks during worship that would not be confessional or would not be sacramental. So I do a lot of those kinds of things, and I am, in my current role, it's kind of a extra pair of hands. So when one of the pastors is out of town, I'm sort of the natural fit to just slide in, which makes it easier for them than having someone different all the time. I know the routine, and I honestly love doing it. So when asked, that's one of the joys of my new role. I did serve on the church council for a while. I was a secretary for a couple of years. I also served as the council president. And over the course of my career on the professional end, I ended up as a school superintendent. So there were many of the duties and leadership roles that came out of my employment that seemed natural, and I understood some of the things that would come in front of a church council, procedural things, things that had to do with employment issues, budgeting. So it was a good experience to not be just in worship, but also to see what happens behind the scenes. So I did all of that while I was still working. And since then, in my retirement, as I mentioned at the beginning, I have been lucky enough to be commissioned as an associate ministry through ELCA, and I am called to my home congregation, which is pretty unique actually, to be the ministry associate here. So now I am a member of staff, and that's a whole new learning experience to be here daily and to be a part of this wonderful group of people, and I learn from them every day.
Of all the ways to serve as a lay leader, why did you choose these roles?
Well, I got to thinking that it's a lot like Paul's letter to the Ephesians. He talks in there about Christ giving each of us unique gifts. Your gifts are not my gifts, and my family has different gifts all within. We all come with different talents and interests and abilities, and so I think that I tried to describe for you a second ago that the things I did at church seemed to be a natural fit for me. In my professional role, I was used to being in front of groups of people, so what might be more difficult for someone else who doesn't have those experiences seemed fairly comfortable for me once I got over being right up by the altar. I think that I chose and I was called and felt drawn to things that I felt prepared for in other ways, and then led to do those things at church as well. I think the Spirit guided me through all of that. I've always loved teaching and learning and value literacy, so to teach the children and and to work in the church library seemed like natural fit. All around, it seemed as if my non-church life, so to speak, helped to prepare me for the things that I was going to do in service to the church.
You've also provided lay leadership at the Synod level, is that correct?
Well, yeah, when I was taking my coursework and loving every second of it in our Synod's lay school, there came a time when there was an opening to be the coordinator for that lay school. And because in my profession I had been a director of curriculum and instruction, it seemed like I would bring a skill set to that came fairly easily, and so I did. I served as the coordinator for the lay school for a couple of years. It was really fun. I actually worked with you during that because you taught. So you were both my teacher and a colleague as we were putting that together. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, it took me beyond our congregational walls, especially when you've been a member of a church for a very long time. For me, it's been 38 years. It was good for me to see how things are done elsewhere and interact with people across the Synod and understand that we're a part of a greater whole. So I really loved it. It was fun.
Weren't you also part of the Synod Finance Committee?
Well, yeah, that one I didn't quite understand as easily. Most of the people on that finance committee are accountants and people with finance degrees and backgrounds, and as they should be. I think that I was asked to serve because of my role as a district administrator in a school district and that I had worked with large budgets and so forth. I spent a lot of time there listening and learning. Again, a great way to learn about the many facets of Synod life and how we relate to church-wide became much clearer to me during that time. Mostly, I think, if I brought anything to that group that they didn't already have, the Spirit might have guided me every now and then to asking a question. In my lack of experience came questions that sometimes make you stop and pause and think about why are we doing what we're doing, or how do we do it, or is there another way that can be done. So perhaps my value in that group at the Synod level was my ability to listen and learn and ask a question or two along the way.
Why do you think that lay leaders are important to the life of our church?
That one I put a lot of thought into in the last year, and I honestly believe that our pastors are called for very special things. They're called to word and sacrament. We want them to be the people who study and guide us and continue to grow in their faith and their biblical studies and all of the other things that go with it. We call pastors to be with us in the hard times in life as families, and the pastoral care and all of those things take an enormous amount of time and energy. So I think lay leaders, when we step up to the plate, we allow the pastors to do what they're called to do. And I think that we fill in the gaps behind the scenes. First Lutheran is a large congregation. Without the multitude of lay leaders we have here, we could never do the kinds of ministries that we do within our walls and outside our walls. We have people with wonderful talents. We have a group of men who come on Tuesday mornings, and they're retired engineers and people who know how to work with their hands, and they do all of our outside work for our buildings and grounds, but they also help us to fix things. They save us, we estimated probably $150,000 in a given year with their expertise, and probably even more important than that, with their good hearts. They're a wonderful group. We have many, many examples of lay leaders who do a variety of things around church. Our entire Journey of Faith program runs on people who volunteer to come and work with our children. When I was in the school district, I had a colleague who used to say that our job administratively was to clear the road so that the real work would be done. And I think lay leaders kind of do that. We work, I hope, at our best in the background. We do the things that need to be done to keep us operational and to keep the doors open and the floors clean and all of those kinds of things. So that when we come to worship or when we are here for other reasons during the week, our pastors have the time and energy to do the kinds of things that they are best at and that they are called to do. So I think that we clear the path, so to speak, for the wonderful ministries that go on in a congregation. And I think I mentioned it before, but I go back to, we couldn't afford to pay for all the services that occur in a church. A church is one of the few places that operates more on volunteers than on paid staff. So there are many, many, many things that would not occur. Funeral lunches, I mean, you know, the list would go on forever of the things that we offer to our greater community and to our members that would not occur without our lay leadership.
Why has lay leadership been so important to you?
Well, you know, one of my favorite passages comes out of the Matthew text where he commissions his disciples. And he told them to go and make disciples of all nations and to baptize. And they weren't the religious leaders of their time. If you think about it, the disciples were like me. They had other jobs. They had lives outside of the specific calling. And yet Jesus was telling them that this is what they're called to do. So we really aren't called to sit back and let somebody else do it. We are called to be disciples in whatever way we feel prepared and ready and drawn to serve. My pathway doesn't look like anybody else's. I think that we each find our own way to serve. For me personally, I'm a learner, and so every step of the way, every time I took on a new task, I learn the mechanics of it, but I always want to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So as a lay reader, as a worship assistant, although I came with the skills to do the public speaking aspects of it, I can read fairly well in public, and all of those things I've done before, it started to occur to me that I didn't really understand why I was doing what I was doing. I didn't know how the liturgy went, and it drew me to learning those things. And because I learned our liturgy, that we're a liturgical church. The word liturgical wasn't really much of my vocabulary 10 years ago. So we are a liturgical church. Why are we? Why is that important to us as Lutherans? And I've learned those things. It makes my faith deeper. So as I grow and learn in any of these positions or any of these ways that I've tried to serve, I learned something new. Last Saturday, I helped clean up after a funeral, and I learned things from the people who had been serving funerals for decades. So I always learn more about our ministry, and I think I grow in faith when I take the time to enter a new arena and try something new.